THA Talks, for free thought and open minds.
And for freedom of speech.
Hello, I'm Paul Obitelli and welcome to another edition of THA Talks, the alternative podcast show from the UK. Our talks include news, conspiracy, spirituality, the occult, science, history, art, philosophy, religion and much more. If you'd like to check out our full archive, you can go to www.thatalks.com to listen to or to download all our free content. And if there's anyone who'd like to contact us and give us some feedback, maybe you'd like to recommend a guest for the show, you can email us info@thatalks.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the show via our RSS feed, and you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and many other podcast directories out there. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining me again here on THA Talks. It's been an eventful start of the year. Hasn't really got any better than last, I guess you could say. More reasons to be optimistic, I think, and there's probably other reasons to not be optimistic. So it looks like it's going to be just as hectic, but we're probably all getting used to it now. I am going to be speaking with John White this week for an update and a summary of the going on over in America with Donald Trump now parting from the White House, and we've got Joe Biden, which many will see as a return of the establishment. One of the Clinton, Obama, Bush boys are back in the seat, which for me sounds incredibly daunting. Or is there more twists in the tail with Donald Trump? He certainly doesn't sound like he's about to give up. You never really know with Donald Trump. But we're obviously going to be hearing more of that over the coming days, and we will be hearing from John White for an update on that one. Today we're going to be speaking with Reverend David Parry again about the Nephilim conference. It's going to be online now due to this pandemic which continues to pester us all. And that's what we're going to be. It was just a bit of a catch-up this week to find out more about that. And we'll also be joined a little later on with Daniele. So without any further ado, Reverend David Parry, how you doing?
What's your cock? How's it hanging?
It's a bit central, so that's all right. Yeah, it's doing all right.
Central is always good, Paul.
Yeah.
Central is good.
Yeah, especially nowadays, I think it's the safest bet with the politics, because I think there's a lot of gulags and stuff that's just about to be built. So the best thing to do is just say you're centrist and hope for the best.
Well, as someone who actually is a centrist, I've never been so depressed in my life.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, saying that, I think I just to say, I think I'm probably the ultimate floating voter, really. Although some wouldn't put me down as that, but it's actually true. But there you go.
Oh, no, I think, yeah, but lots of people like caricaturing your political position.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, when I met him, listeners, when I first met him, he was a socialist.
Pretty much. And to be honest, I don't really have an allegiance to socialism or capitalism. I just vote for whoever's making sense at the time. That's how I see it. You never know what's needed at the time, do you? So I think you're quite the same, really, aren't you?
Well, that's why I'm so depressed.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, look, Paul, nobody's making sense at the minute. I mean, this old, Sleepy Joe, what's his face? I mean, God's sake, man, buck up a bit. And, Trump, he never floated my boat. So, no, I just feel, I don't know, I'm taking a step back from an interest in politics for a while until all the children leave the playpen and some adults come back. Yeah,
it's difficult to see what's going on at the moment. I will be speaking with John White this week about an update on his whole take on it. Obviously, he has a very controversial view with the he's been involved in the QAnon movement and this kind of stuff. Although he's always been quite balanced in his approach to it. He's not been one of the ones that just throw himself at stuff. But we'll see what he's got to say. And I mean, I've always been skeptical of what Trump is about. I'm still interested to find out what it's intriguing, but one thing that I'm just probably terrified. It feels like it was Bush, Clinton, and Obama, and it feels like one of those boys are back there, and that to me, it just doesn't sound good. What anyone ever thinks of Trump, we've had a 4 years of no new conflicts or wars started. And that's been so refreshing and good. It just feels like there's a bunch of people who have been dying to get back in the Middle East and kick it off again or something. And we'll soon find out if that's the case. How it's going to play out, I don't know. But there you go.
John White is an incredible man. I owe him a favour to this very day, defending me at a difficult time, as one of Britain's last living liberals with a true capital L.
Yeah.
So I look forward to that, and I'm sure he'll give an absolutely wonderful account of what's going on. Even of this weird Buffalo kid. I mean, what on earth is going on there?
Oh, to be honest, I actually see it as quite haunting to me, because I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't some nutters that went to the White House and went to the Capitol and started to create all sorts of trouble. But a lot of those people, they look like tourists taking pictures like, hello, look at that, sweetie, isn't that a nice statue? You know, a lot of that going on. And then you hear people talk on the terrorists and saying they should be incarcerated. And you're thinking, all right, there was a lot of naughty people that day, but there's some footage of them letting them in. I mean, it's really weird what went on that day, because there is footage. This isn't a conspiracy. There is footage of the police opening the door and saying, go on in. So if you're inviting people in, you're putting your complete trust in those people to not create problems. And to be honest, the fact that they let them in, you've got to think that they're lucky that nothing worse happened, because most of the people were just taking around, taking snaps, raising their flags, going, whoa, man, we're in look where we are. So I was a bit haunted by it, because it's like the way the media and the Democrats went on these people. You would have thought they're worse than ISIS. And that really wasn't the case. You know, these people a lot of them were pissed off, and they were protesting. They've got a right to protest. Shouldn't have ended up in the building. So why did they end up in the building? And most of them, including the guy, the shaman guy that you're talking about, he was in, he's like a hippie going, oh, great. Oh, you bleeding man? You all right? You know, I don't know. It's a bit creepy, if you ask me, the whole thing.
I don't get Buffalo Bill's angle at all. I mean, you know, apart from the fact it's one gigantic publicity stunt. I mean, he's an actor or something. And I think it was our mutual friend Freya Aswin that was saying on the social media, you know, why on earth does he claim to be a shaman? I'm paraphrasing. And I must admit, that was my sort of initial reaction. Who are you? And, you know, stop giving yourself airs and graces you clearly don't deserve. And yeah, I don't know, the whole thing left me, apart from the fatalities, which were terrible, of course, the whole thing just left me utterly stunned. But I mean, you know me, Paul, I try and never make a comment outside Europe, because I'm already, you know, no matter how great the similarities, I'm never sure I really understand what's going on. And I prefer just talking about Boris torn Britain, because that's the bit I understand best. And why hasn't that man resigned yet?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds bad, but I to be honest, I haven't even been paying attention what's been going on in the UK. Since I was obviously interested in how Brexit panned out, and it appears we sorted out, came out with a relatively decent deal. I don't know. We'll see that plays out. But I'm more interested in what's going on in America, because I think they're going to have more impact on the world, and that's ultimately. I think Boris is a pawn. He'll if Trump had won, he would have been Britain's Trump but he was very quick to congratulate Biden, even when a lot of this stuff, I still think there's what worries me is a lot of that election, there was some real dodgy stuff going on, and whether people got free to say that it wouldn't have changed the election doesn't mean you ignore it, though, because it's been ignored. There was a lot of really dodgy stuff that went on in that election, and it's been completely ignored. So what does that tell about the future for anyone, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican? It means these people are in control. It means they can, next time they can do it. They know they can, because none of this was looked at. They've just got to step it up a bit next time and do it a bit better. I
mean, where's Uncle Sam when you need him? I mean, I just find the whole thing depressing. I just find the whole situation depressing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, it's good. We've got this conference that you're doing up. I think what we've got to do, I mean, it's difficult not to be political nowadays, because it's just it's just going 100 miles an hour at the moment. But we've got to remember there are other things in the world to take your mind off it now and again, and to research interesting stuff that makes life a bit more interesting apart from politics, which I think is quite important, just to stop yourself from going insane. And one of those things is things like researching the Nephilim and the ancient giants, which is fascinating. And that's ultimately what you're here to talk about, right?
It is indeed, my friend. I mean, and don't forget, you'll be part of that experimental research council.
Oh, that's all. I'm always automatically a part of it, mate. Anything you
You've
do.
got to paint yourself blue. You've
Yeah.
got to paint yourself blue. There's a long story behind that. I mean, where do I start with this one, Paul? I mean, it's an idea I've been pursuing since 2014. Can you believe?
Mm.
When I sort of suddenly approached a couple of people back then, including our mutual friend Vladimir Wiedemann, the author and mystic, and of course in that case, it's not me being sarcastic because he is, and saying, look, I mean, all this Nephilim stuff is interesting because there were a lot of people talking about it at the time. And I think we've got to do it. We've got to hold a conference. And I think back then we settled on the working title of Giants, Bloodlines, and Crystal Skulls. I mean, I'd have to look in my own files because I can't remember offhand because it was a long time back. And I approached a number of people I thought that could really give some insight into what on earth that weird phenomenon was about. The Reverend Jim Wilhelmsen, who became a chum of mine, and it's not true that liberals never get on with evangelicals. It depends who the liberal is, and it depends who the evangelical is. So, the Reverend Jim Wilhelmsen, who has an incredibly deep and powerful and meaningful ministry as well as a life. I mean, an incredible man. Excuse me, who wrote a book called Beyond Science Fiction, and of course was a Christian minister in Roswell. So an evangelical with an eye for the strange and the uncanny. So he was one of the first people I approached and said, look, Jim, I mean, this seems to be up your street. Would you be interested in forming a panel with me? And he was rather enthusiastic. We approached the sort of glitterati glamour boy, Andrew Goff, saying that because, of course, by now, a bit of humour, because he's an old friend of mine. Of course, he's been on Discovery Channel, I believe, History Channel, and has become quite an authority in these circles over the years. I mean, he has, remember, Paul, I was never into that flat earth stuff, but I'm into sort of hidden, deep earth, hollow earth, all that sort of stuff. I find that interesting. And Andrew Goff, I believe, was going to talk about it back then, relics of inner civilizations. And I believe after me pleading with him, he's basically going to talk about the same thing again now. We've got Vladimir back, who people forget the circles our friend moved in. I mean, they were powerful circles in the old Soviet Union, whereby the University of Moscow, no backward establishment, was working at the time with something called the New Anthropology, which was incredibly revolutionary in the orthodox sciences, in the Orthodox Academy. The only reason it never made it to the West was it was being formed at the time when there was still an Iron Curtain. And then, of course, Glasnost came along. So people, as you were saying a minute ago, they had other things on their mind, and it never actually came across, lost all its funding as Russia restructured itself. And therefore, that incredibly important development is dormant at the moment. So I've asked Vladimir to join our panel to speak about it. If ever there was a time to look at new human origins, and, forbidden or hidden histories, I always go down the hidden history route rather than the forbidden, because I work on the basis that actually these questions are so large and they're so important that people simply don't put them into the usual frame of reference in the right way. There's no point pretending there's a conspiracy when there isn't. People don't get funding for these things because academies are under pressure to produce things for business. But, it's a shame because we need that form of research. Certainly, we're looking at him again. We've got Mog Morgan, who was my original publisher. I mean, Mog Morgan is an author in his own right and the CEO of Mandrake of Oxford. He's looking at the Egyptian material. We've got Susan Laban, who is currently completing her PhD in a Welsh university, a highly respected Welsh university, and doing research at Oxford. Also, a very, very well-known healer and psychic, linked to the Arthur Findlay College as a recognized tutor there. She will be looking at the Babylonian material. People forget, I'm one of those people that don't think, for obvious reasons, I'm a minister, the Bible has to constantly justify itself, but also I'm a progressive in the additional sense that, yes, there are other materials that deal with these issues. The Babylonian material seems to go back a lot further, and they've got their own stories on the Nephilim. So we've got an Egyptian angle through Mog Morgan. We've got a Babylonian angle through Susan. Our mutual friend Stedman, more of a cultural figure than I realised. But of course, the acting Godey of one of the London temples, one of the London blokes, who will be speaking about the Nordic view. So you can see where I'm going with this, Obertelli. The Nordic view of the materials. My own view, as usual, tends to be something anthroposophical. It tends to be something theosophical. And I mean, as the convener, I doubt if I'll have much time to say, what my own views are, because we've got a whole day's events to put on. We've got some very exciting speakers and some very challenging break times, which I'll go into in a minute. But I want to look at what the different traditions, what the different countries, what the different continents are saying about what appears to be a primordial global tradition of another species interacting with us and that didn't have our best interests at heart. And for me, I think the theosophical view, the theosophical materials, which stretch back way beyond recorded history altogether, shed light on the fact this was a global phenomena, and this is of interest to us all, particularly because, I'm actually much more sympathetic to the evangelical worldview than they realise. I've got a bit of a gag, I've got a love-hate relationship with them. I love them and they hate me. It's a bit of a gag, but it's also not a bit of a gag, but it doesn't mean I don't listen to their materials. And certainly something that caught my attention all those years ago has been catching my attention again recently, simply because this conference is finally coming to life, albeit in a virtual form this year, because we can't do anything else. We tried 3 venues, 3 of which let us down, all 3 of which let us down. And no one is willing to take the risk of a booking under present lockdown conditions without endless caveats, which we won't agree to. So we've been forced to go online this year. If the angels allow, we'll have a face-to-face conference next year, hopefully with the same but expanded panel. But my view is, let's get it all on the table and see where it goes as energy gathers once again in this incredible theme. Getting back to my point from a minute ago, it was Chuck Missler, a man, Dr. Chuck Missler, and actually his PhD was in engineering as far as I know. And he'd spent most of his life, even though an ardent evangelical Christian of immense biblical knowledge, studying unusual things as well as the Bible. And it was him that caught my attention all those years back. The disciples were asking our Savior, when will the world end? What are the initial signs of that? Now, of course, there's already a mystery there. What does Scripture mean by the world ending? And I imagine that's a lengthy process. It's not, it's not a mopping up exercise. I imagine that's quite lengthy. And our good Lord says something very odd by anybody's definition, as it was in the days of Noah. And you think, well, hang on a second. So that goes all the way back to Genesis 6, where you come across an incredibly odd story. Those that fly above. Now, usually when, and I've come across different opinions of this, if the word angel, the English word angel is used, the Greek equivalent, as far as I know, is angeloi. But that is not the word that is used for those that fly above. So who are they and what are they? If all these UFO boys are looking for biblical inroads into Scripture, if they're looking for inroads into Scripture, into Bible views of all of this, this is the perfect example to my mind. And those that fly above, they took a hankering after the daughters of men, in other words, human beings, and they took the daughters of men unto wife, and this forbidden union produced what we know nowadays as the Nephilim, the Nephal, the fallen ones, and they were giants. They were giants of a carnivorous, evil, antagonistic nature that took an oppositional attitude to the human race from the beginning, and would have enslaved and basically used us all for food if they'd have got the chance. Very, very, very strange materials indeed. as a Christian minister, it intrigues me, and I think it's a good time, since the world is in such turmoil, to look at these materials again and try and think, well, what does all this mean for our time? What do you make of that, Obertelly?
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, touching on the fact that it's now going to be done online. When you say that, are you thinking of doing it like on something like Zoom, and so people just log on and it's all done that way?
Well, certainly there will be a charge for if you want to join the conference, which I think is fair enough. The charge of a cup of tea or cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And there is a chance to submit papers. We're going to bring out the most enlightened papers that want to talk about these things. We're building a community as we were back in those days. I mean, this afternoon, I've had confirmation, people's names I haven't heard of in all those years, still keeping in contact with me and congratulating me for finally managing, to get it on. So yes, I mean, it will be a full day conference on Zoom, I believe. There'll be a slight charge for those who wish to participate, and we're thinking of selling recordings as the first step towards a face-to-face and much larger conference next year.
Okay, so and how much people would you be able to fit onto the Zoom conference and view at once?
That I don't know, Paul, but I think when Daniele comes on the show, he'll be able to answer that. You know what I'm like with techie stuff.
I'll ask Daniel in a sec. Okay, so I mean, let's look. What do you personally think? Maybe you don't know, maybe you have a view on it, but I just want to find out your position. Do you personally think that the giants, the Nephilim, whatever word others have used in history, do you think they were physical beings? Do you think they were spiritual beings, or should I say astral beings, spirits, or do you think it is a combination? What's your personal position?
An incredibly insightful point there, Paul. I mean, remember, as I said, I believe on others, we've got to get THA going again, Paul. It's a little treasure.
Yeah.
It's up to us. It's up to us to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
As I've said on some of the other shows, I'm actually one of those freaks that's seen a UFO. When I was in school in Hampshire many, many years ago, we actually saw this silvery disc flying silently over the playground. And it was absolutely devastatingly beautiful. Your classic UFO shape, not a single sound in the sky. We went to go and get one of the teachers. It was teachers' break time. They wouldn't come out and see it. And I remember to this day the reactions of the people in the schoolyard. Some ran off screaming, some were hiding. We saw it. I mean, I remember my reaction, and the rarefied kids in the playground who just realised how beautiful it was. When we went back into school, the first thing the teacher said was, and we want no talk about UFOs, flying saucers. And I'd lost my faith in mainstream education that day, to be honest. So a little miracle has happened, and you don't want to talk about it. Where do I go from there? Let's take a theosophical angle. If we go past Atlantis, Blavatsky, and of course Rudolf Steiner doesn't actually say she's wrong about most of these things. He just says that, by the way, there's also a Western mystery tradition which is just as serious and maybe in some ways even more serious than the East. I mean, that's why originally, that's one of the main reasons he split with the Theosophical Society in Berlin, I believe, and founded the Anthropological Society, which I can go into a lot more at some other point. Certainly, if you're going back in her view, in the view of those writings, before Atlantis, and Atlantis people tend to forget wasn't quite what we mean by physical in this sense of the word. If you go back to Lemuria, and if you go back to Mu, the motherland, that's something that very few people have had the chance to look at in those books. You remember KLF, Paul, that song with Tammy Wynette, Moo Land?
I think so, vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what they were talking about, believe it or not, Moo Land, the motherland of Mu.
Yeah.
I mean, what Blavatsky describes is a descent of spirit into matter. I mean, spirit is descending from much more powerful realms than ours, and matter was trying to rise up to it, being impregnated by it. So if you look at what the Lemurians would have been, as far as we're capable at this stage of our own evolution of understanding these things, they'd be more spiritual than material, even though a combination of both. The Lemurians would have been more of a balance between the two. But, spirit is trying to impregnate, it's trying to indent the material conditions of our universe. And certainly in theosophical views, our universe is a subset of conditions in a much larger and more powerful and more profound set, which of course is something the Bible talks about all the way through. So, and even by the time you get to Atlantis, they're not quite physical in the way we are. They've got greater intellects, they've got greater access to the more immediate planes around us, the etheric, the astral, all of which is being lost as spirit descends into matter ever more potently, but is still there at that time. Therefore, my own view would be that certainly those that fly above, I don't think what Scripture or any of the other books is describing, a physical or tangible beings in the sense that we would recognize that nowadays. But they had enough corporeality to be able to interact on some deep and maybe even sexual, maybe even, progenitive level with the human race of that particular time. Therefore, I think my own view would be they'd be sort of a bit more like the Atlanteans, part of that other nature and part of this nature. And it was that meant, to a certain extent, they were unstoppable in our world. And, higher powers had to find a way of dealing with them. And certainly it seems to be open war between the children of Israel and the Nephilim and the Rephaim, and Moses ordering the slaughter of these beings. And you think, well, hang on, even that's odd. Why is a prophet doing that? And what exactly is he suggesting that is done? And curiously, some of the evangelicals, I don't know about this, but have said the Great Flood was actually the response of higher powers to try and resolve this situation and clear away the giants. Even though, of course, there are Nephilim and Rephaim who survived the flood and are later encountered in the Holy Lands. Don't know what you make of all that stuff, but these are some of the things we'll be looking at during the conference.
Yeah, it's a sort of subject. The more you talk about it, the more intriguing it gets, because there's just so much history and religion behind it all. And I think I said the last one when we first done a show on this last show we done. I think it's just not inconceivable because of the fact that if you look at real ancient history, or before human civilization, you had everything was larger. Like crocodiles were bigger, sharks were bigger, gorillas were bigger. Everything just seemed to be ultra huge. So it makes sense that perhaps there was on that side of it. I've always thought of that really. One thing I want to address before I forget and not to bring up on this is we've obviously got a contact where people could have got the tickets for the last when you were going to have a venue booked. Is that still the location they go to book a viewing slot or whatever you want to call it for this online one?
I think this is the perfect time to hand over to Daniele, because everybody on this show knows what a tech freak I am, and a technophobe. And I'll come back on in a minute, Paul, when you've just discussed that with him, because these are incredibly interesting topics to deal with. Let me just say one thing before I hand over. Even the evangelicals, as I say, sometimes I've got a lot of time for them. If you look at the world before the flood, if you look at the world before the curse, when Adam and Eve are thrown, whatever that means. After all, Adam means man, and Eve means the mother of all things. So what are you looking at there? Mm. When they're expelled from the Garden of Eden and the curse is put on the earth, there's the implication deep in the scriptures that everything was prone to giantism before. Light conditions were different, gravitational conditions were different, and the whole of nature was much more abundant, long-living, durable, and brilliant throughout the colour spectrum. What strange and wonderful materials we're dealing with. Let me just say one last thing about those that fly above. Some of them, if you look at, I personally think that should be included in the biblical text still, Gnostic scriptures, like the Book of Enoch.
Fascinating, fascinating.
And none of them, what I think on this, none of them should ever have been removed. None of them should ever have been excluded. certainly some of those that fly above have names, and there is tantamount to open dissent about what they do to assist the human race. After all, they've made a miscalculation. They've done something that they regret, and they start giving knowledge of an unknown, nowadays unknown and occult nature to early humans to be able to survive the onslaught of these terrible creatures. So it gets deeper and more mysterious and more intriguing at every step of the way.
Right. Okay. Well, let's that's fascinating stuff. I'm looking forward to welcoming Daniele back on the show. How are you doing, Daniele?
Paul, it's great to be back on your show once again. I'm always looking forward to speaking with you and be a part of THA Talks.
Always a pleasure to have you on.
This is a wonderful show, and I think it needs to go ahead and expand. When it started, I was actually at university in Aberystwyth, and I never had the chance to sort of get into it. But after the lockdown, when the lockdown hit,
plenty of time
I
then.
had more time.
Yeah.
David talked me into it, and I started to listen to all of them, and it's a wonderful show, and it's a great platform, really. And it was one of the first podcasts, really. If we go back a few years ago, this was one of the podcasts that really took off. So that's something to be really proud of. So congratulations, Paul.
Thank you very much for the compliments. Yeah, I mean, I've been talking on this show with David Parry, and one thing I like about what we do here is we kind of visit communities. It's like we sort of like venture our way through different communities, and it's like THA does have its own community. We have these sort of events that we go to, and we've explored so many different movements and different bits and pieces. And obviously the most recent one is the TEDx venture. That's been fascinating, finding out all about that and so on, and stuff that's just a little bit more off the wall, a bit more kind of unusual, in like talking about the Nephilim and giants and stuff. So before I would like to hear about how to get tickets and all that. So we'll run through that before we say goodbye. What's your views and stuff like that? Because are you open about your religion generally, or your spirituality?
Yes, I mean, that's actually a very important question. And actually, it's very interesting for me because, the lockdown has been in some ways devastating for lots of people. But in some ways, it gave us an opportunity to do things that we couldn't do previously.
Make the most of certain things, yeah.
Yeah, and it gave me a chance really to look into the holy books, Quran, Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. So I'm really privileged to have had the chance to read through all of it. And, David's mentioned this before, but, those three books are probably the most important books in history. And they really change one's perception of the world. In some ways, they make you evolve in terms of your consciousness and worldview. So I'm really open to the idea of Nephilim. I don't know what sort of form they take. I think that's really it's really debatable, and I don't think it can be you can't really pinpoint what they are. I think that's a very sort of modern, reductive, materialist point of view, that you have to be able to sort of sort of pinpoint accurately what they are. So I think really when it comes to those sorts of things, they're mysteries, and we have to sort of use our imagination really to understand and think about them, to understand what they are. I wouldn't say. I'm not sure if they were physical. I'm not sure if they were astral. I think I have to really use my imagination, really.
Oh, yeah.
I see lots of photos on the internet with skulls, huge skulls and skeletons. And sometimes people say, they're photoshops,
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. It's very difficult to say.
They do very good ones nowadays. That's the problem. And in fact, generally speaking, nowadays, because of Photoshop and stuff, it's almost becoming impossible to get photo or video evidence of something because it can be doctored. So it's almost like in the past, perhaps we could have, when you have photos of stuff, you could believe it a little bit more. But it's almost like now photos are less reliable as evidence because you can. I mean, maybe there's professionals that can really tell, but we're only going in one direction. It's only going to get better, isn't it? So it's a bit freaky, really, that you think you can't. They can even sort of just about fake speeches. You have people with faces put on them, and you can have like someone like Donald Trump or Obama or someone speaking to you on video, and it's not really them. It's just like an image made up and a dummy voice, and you can see it's not real, but it's certainly getting better. It's certainly getting pretty close.
Oh yeah. That's called deep fake, I think.
That's it. Yeah, that seems to be the mainstream word for it. And I mean, if that's out for us to see, you can only imagine what the real pros out there and the secret governments, what they're able to do. You know, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think at these times we need we need to use our critical thinking. We have to interpret things. We can't just accept what we're being told, by the media, by policymakers, press releases. I think we have to be very careful and be very critical of what's being said. And, I think at these times, it's even more important. It's more important than ever, really, especially because our civil liberties are at stake, our freedom and rights, which are in danger at the minute.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think everyone's feeling that and nervously waiting to see if this unfolds how it should. We should return them. But it's very worrying times, even now we've got this vaccine that's out that everyone's saying, oh, phew, we've got the vaccine. They're already saying, oh, don't think that's the end of it. And it's like, you what? I'm not particularly a fan of vaccines and I don't trust a lot of these people at the moment, but you would have thought even on their narrative, oh, the vaccine's here, we're saved. But it doesn't seem to be enough of that for my liking.
Yeah. And as you know, I'm actually I'm currently doing a doctoral research at King's College London, and it's been a very challenging period for me, especially because they're not allowing anyone to enter the campus without testing and vaccination. So that really is an obstacle to people who don't want to do those things, and at the same time they're charging us thousands of pounds, which I haven't paid, by the way. I'm refusing to pay the universities at the minute.
I mean,
which is getting me into lots of trouble.
Well, I mean, you're a young man. You don't need to take the vaccine. I mean, I'm all for vaccines being available for people that want to take them, as long as people do their homework and really think about what they're taking. It's their responsibility. So fair enough. If someone wants to take a vaccine, especially if you're over 70 or something and you're worried about the virus, go take the vaccine if you want to do that. But this pushing it on people like you and me and these big corporations, I mean, we're seeing the big corporations abuse their power now. We're seeing it in sport, where in sport, we've always accepted you don't bring politics into sport. It's what people do. They get home from work, they crack open a beer, they just want to watch the football or the boxing and get away from everything else. That's what's enjoyable about it. Now they're bringing politics in, but it's got to be one type of politics. And this is corporations, and it's the same corporation. Well, now we're not going to let you fly. So a lot of the people are saying, oh, the government aren't going to make vaccines, mandatory. They won't need to, because this is how fascism was created last century. Is you have big corporations gang up with government, and they get the power that way. And it is worrying, but I mean, maybe these vaccine, I don't know, maybe the vaccine, it's not the fact that it's bad for us. Maybe it's not bad for us. It's just, I personally don't trust it because of the dishonesty that's led up this whole year leading to the vaccines. I don't trust why they want us to take it so much. It could be that they just want to sell loads of them. I don't know, maybe the vaccines aren't that bad, it's just the whole trust thing for me,
Yeah, and Boris Johnson needs to resign, period.
Oh, I wouldn't be that upset if he did. The only problem is you worry about who's going to get his place, because they're all as bad as each other. That's the problem.
Libertarian Party.
Well, yeah, that's. I think people have just got to just almost like give up in democracy to get rid of the two top. Because if you just vote, no one votes for the party they really want. They tactically vote. They vote for the party that's going to stop the one they hate most getting in. And we're never going to get any change if people do it. So I think from now on, I'm just going to vote for whoever. I don't care about the tactical votes because it's not making any change. So just if everyone just said, look, don't be afraid if that one gets in because they're all as bad as each other. Just vote for the one you want. And if they get in, then we might see some real change if democracy still survives, that is, which at the moment, a lot of people are wondering, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I like your, I like that way of thinking. And I think, yeah, we need, what we need is rational debate at the end of the day. And I think, conferences like Nephilim Anthropology and podcasts like THA Talks really provide that. It's not just about sort of, point scoring. It's about rational debate. And that's what we're providing. We're trying to provide with Nephilim Anthropology Conference. We've got people from everywhere, all, different countries joining us on this platform. So Vladimir Wiedemann is from Estonia, Jim Wilhelmsen, Leon Zagami, and we've got Ra Castaldo as well, who are joining us from the US. So this is a really exciting time for us, and I think it's important to make sure that we maintain it. To go back to one of your earlier questions about booking tickets.
That's it. Yeah, we need to touch on that.
So we have changed it slightly. It's now nacon21.eventbrite.co.uk, and NACON is spelled NACON. That's basically an abbreviation for Nephilim Anthropology Conference. And 21 is obviously the year, 2021. That's the link that takes you to the box office, our booking system. The cheapest tickets at the minute, the early bird tickets, are $9.75 each. And they have a range of benefits, really attractive benefits. So, the people who book those tickets, they'll get a chance to submit a paper to our panel, which will be peer reviewed for publication in our upcoming magazine, which is called NACON Review. And that's going to be electronic. Obviously, because of the restrictions, we can't print physical copies and send them to the attendees. There are also a range of other benefits. So the early bird tickets are at a 50% discount. So, and that's going to end. The sale for early bird tickets is going to end at the end of March.
And how much are they going to be?
So they're going to be called All Access Pass, and that's going to be about £15.
Okay.
So it's slightly more expensive, and I would really suggest people buy the early bird tickets. Then we also have VIP pass tickets. They're £49, and they have a lot more benefits for our audience members. So we'll mention them as our supporter on social media platforms, as well as during the conference. So they'll be verbally mentioned, and if they have a company logo, we can also showcase that on the screen. The other benefit is they'll also get a free extra early bird ticket for a family member or a friend or a colleague, so they can send that along.
Yeah.
There's also a free signed copy of a book by one of our speakers, and that's going to be sent directly to the person's postal address. Which is a very good sort of bonus, really, but bonus gift. So we're very proud of that. The costs are very reasonable. We try to make it flexible for everyone to join us. And obviously, after the event, there are going to be recordings available as well, if people are interested. In terms of the conference itself, it's going to be through Zoom, and there'll be a time for Q&A as well. For each of our speakers. There's going to be 2 intermissions, and we're going to have lots of activities during those intermissions, including a virtual dance, meet up, a chance to have a virtual tea with our speakers as well, among other things as well. So I'm really excited. As I worked on TEDx for 2 years, TEDx Lambeth for 2 years. Now I'm joining this project because I think there's so much potential, and I'm really privileged.
Cool. Yeah. And just to make sure, that website, that was NACon 2021 email.evenbright.co.uk.
So it's nacon21.eventbrite.co.uk.
Okay, I think that is the same link as the when it was a venue ticketed occasion. Yeah. So that's everyone's already got that. That's cool then. So I'll put a link to that on the website so people can go and check that out and bookmark it in case they're up for doing this. It sounds like it'll be a really cool event, because the thing is, everyone's in lockdown anyway. So it'll be really cool to just sort of go onto Zoom and you sort of spend the day listening to intriguing people like this, and you sit down, have a coffee, and ask them your questions directly, because obviously when you're tucking into a YouTube video, you can't always do that. So it's going to be a whole new experience. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Paul, absolutely, and I'm really hoping people will join us on the day. It's an evolving community. Yeah. I think David wants to say a couple of things before the show ends. So
I appreciate you coming on as well. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again very soon. So thank you, Daniela.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's always a pleasure. Take care.
Cheers.
Stop milking it over, Tilly. You know you're one of us.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this one. It's it's if you can't get the venue and go out there and see it, we can all sit home with a cup of coffee and still have a bloody conference. How's about that? You know what I mean?
You know me, I prefer actual physical things. I mean, my work in theatre, because there's a magic, as you know yourself, Paul. There's a magic to it. There's a charge. There's an energy.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I'm learning that hybrid events can be fun too.
Yeah. And
it's got me plotting and planning for a number of other things maybe we can also do this year. To extend one of Daniele's points, yes, we need more rational debate, but we also need imagination. I'll be talking about the arts behind the Nephilim and maybe some heretical views, like Swedenborg's view of the Nephilim, which actually is very close to mine. Because that's under attack as well at the minute. Our creativity as individual people.
Big time.
I can't think of one thing that isn't under attack at the minute. Provided the billionaires get their way, we can all just belly up and get on with it at the bottom. Absolutely no. There were giants before and we beat them and we'll beat them again, which is one of the ideas behind this show.
Sounds good to me. That sounds very good. And, yeah, I mean, it's like what you say. I think that although online, physical contact and physical events are obviously the main thing. That's life. That's reality. That's human nature. But while we're doing this, it does have its advantages doing this stuff like this. I mean, as you said, you had Stead that was going to come onto the online on the conference and talk about the Norse side of it. I've been to several of Stead's Norse blots and stuff. In fact, people that know the show, they know there was a hoo-ha about that Swedish chap who decided to film us all there and called us neo-Nazis and all that kind of stuff. But no, they're great, and he's extremely passionate about it. He does all his rituals like in ancient Icelandic tongue. Very passionate about what he does, and so I've actually attended a few of his online blots, because when all this happened, he didn't just stop doing it. Every month he's still got a blot, he's still got his moots. In fact, I went to one recently where Richard Rudgley, which is a friend of yours, and he's also been on the show, his Odin book, he was talking about it, intriguing, and that was brilliant. I was just sitting indoors, listening to this great talk and stuff. And it sounds like this talk is going to be like a sort of a big one of those, a big event of that. So it sounds really exciting. And I think, although physical events, we've got to make sure we get back to that. And none of this 1 tier, 2 tier nonsense. I'm talking about get back to reality, how it was. When there shouldn't be any compromises. But while we're here, while we're incarcerated, let's make the most of what we've got,
Let's empower ourselves and take a few steps forward, Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, at the risk of being tangential for a minute, I mean, I've spoken to Stead about his views. He strikes me as sort of extreme UKIP as opposed to anything scarier. If people find that scary, I mean, I'm a liberal. I like talking to people with different types of view. No, he's a thoroughly decent human being, a very talented man. Certainly, I enjoy working with him. All Nephilim means is giants in Hebrew. So we have our own traditions of giants, and that is very exciting because he'll be looking at it from an in-depth view of the Northern tradition.
Absolutely.
And I don't care what people say, that is a necessary complement to what we're discussing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we are just about getting to that sort of time. So is there anything you'd like to add, you or Daniela, add to this show before we wrap it up?
Well, I mean, what we're trying to do, what I discovered to my absolute horror, delight and shock, is that the community that was forming, because this will be, as far as we know, the UK's first Nephilim event, which was one of the things bonding the community back in 2014. Most of the names I recognise for them have turned up. We managed to establish a real community then without realising it. What we're hoping is this online event is the first step towards a much bigger conference, face-to-face next year. Join our community at this embryonic stage, and who knows where we can get to.
Sounds good to me, that, and I think that's where we're gonna wrap it up. And well, I look forward to the next one. Both you and Daniel are right. We do need to roll THA forward a lot more, and perhaps this will be the year that it will happen. But yeah, we'll do that. Well, I have, as I said earlier, I've got John White coming on the show very shortly to update us on the crazy stuff going on at the moment in America and his views on that. And I really hope that you and Daniele join me here again very soon, as we should be making more of a habit of doing these.
This is a great little show with a gigantic future, Paul. Let's do it.
Thank you very much. Speak to you soon. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening.